Hey, welcome to Coffee Time. My name is Casey.
And I'm Mark.
It's good to have you with us this fine Monday morning. Hope you had a good weekend. Come on in, grab your cup of coffee, grab your Bible, drop us a comment, let us know you're here. Tell us how your weekend went. We'd love to hear from you. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. We're making our way through the Gospel of Luke right now, and we love interacting with our live viewers. And at the end of the show, we'll have a prayer. And so if you have any prayer requests, we will lift those up as well. But even if you're watching this on playback at a later date, don't hesitate to comment or leave a prayer request. And people that are watching later can be in prayer and benefit from any comments, insights you have into the text. So welcome. Join us. Well, did you have a good weekend? Anything in particular?
Are we slow? Oh yeah. Okay. Sorry. I
need to get a sound check in there.
There we go. Yeah, always. So my wife and my son went out of town Friday. Came back last night. They went down to Dallas to go pick up my niece and nephews to bring them up here to spend the week with their grandparents.
Okay.
So it was me and my daughter this weekend, and then she had a youth group trip Saturday.
Okay.
So I was just kind of by myself.
Oh, okay.
Saturday I didn't do anything exciting. Worked on a sermon.
Yeah.
Friday I went fishing.
Okay.
I like to do that whenever I can. Yeah. So that was fun.
Yeah. You catch fish to eat or just for?
Just
a hobby.
Depends on the day. I caught one Friday, and I was debating on whether to bring it home, but I put it back. Sometimes you just don't feel like dealing with
I hear you.
Making fish and doing all the gross stuff that goes with that. So I put it back that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hear you.
But it was a pretty simple weekend.
Yeah.
How did your weekend go?
Good. Got some yard work done. I kind of messed up on, let's see, what day was that? Maybe Saturday. Yeah. I guess I was cleaning the house and was moving something around, tripped on something, lost my balance, and didn't have anything to like break my fall. So I kind of put my hand behind me and just fell flat on my thumb.
Oh.
And I heard a loud pop.
Oh.
And so I don't know if I broke it. But if I didn't break it, I don't know what popped. But it's not like really hurting, but it is definitely really bruised and really swollen. And so I taped it just to like keep that joint from bending, but I can rotate it. And even after I did it, I was able to bend that joint, but it just is very uncomfortable. And so the tape is really just to kind of immobilize it, but like it's not throbbing. I'm able to sleep, but it's super bruised and super swollen. So I'm not really sure exactly what happened to it. I didn't go get it x-rayed because it didn't look, the way that it popped, I was fully expecting to pull my hand up and see my thumb at a 90-degree angle.
Okay.
But it was straight. Everything looked fine. Nothing looked out of place or anything. So I was like, I'm just gonna roll with it and tape it. So so we'll see.
Okay.
I told myself if it's like excruciating and like doesn't seem like anything's getting any better by Monday, I'll go get it x-rayed. But it seems like it's getting better. I've been keeping ice on it, and so yeah. I guess that's just part of getting older.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say you're starting to get to the age where you have to worry about your hip and stuff like that. So
yeah. So other than that, we got to do some swimming, and I think Carson, my youngest, maybe has found a new love of swimming.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We were just swimming laps, and I told him how long like a third of a mile was, and so he wanted to do that. And I was like, if you do this many more, you can do a half mile. And he was like, I'm definitely doing that. So he swam like a half mile.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
wow.
That was fun.
I have never been a fan of swimming, but I used to do like a mile swim back when I was in Boy Scouts. And you'd swim in a lake, which I don't like swimming to begin with.
Yeah.
But swimming in a lake for me is a lot worse. So I never want to do that ever again.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
I've had too many near-death experiences in the water, and so I have a healthy fear of the water. Although I like to
I was
go
present
fishing.
for one of those near-death experiences.
Were you?
Canoeing.
Oh, that one. Yeah.
You don't even consider that as one?
No. No, that was just one of the many. I think I took swimming lessons as a kid growing up, and we're going off on a tangent here. I took swimming lessons as a kid growing up. Like my parents took me, and I did it for a long time, and I was pretty good at it. And then I had one event happen when I was a kid, and that was my little sister fell into a swimming pool. She was too young to be in the water. There were no adults paying attention, and she fell in the deep end. And so I jumped in and tried to save her. I saved her. Sorry, that sounded like she didn't make it. She made it. But me being a kid in the deep end of the pool trying to keep my youngest sister out of the water meant that I wasn't coming out of the water. And for some reason, none of the adults were paying attention to what was going on. Anyway, I almost drowned. I ended up getting a lot of water in my lungs and stuff before somebody finally got me out. Ever since then, I get just, when I get in the water, I get nervous, which kind of messes with your ability to swim and think clearly. So like, I'll do dumb things like go into the ocean on my own when the waves are huge. And, you know, I think I was telling you, well, I was at the beach not long ago and I got stuck in one of those, what are they called?
Riptides.
Riptides. Yeah. That's not the first time that's happened to me.
Oh, man.
I should learn my lesson and stay away.
Yeah, those are dangerous for strong swimmers.
So anyway, I'm healthy fear of water.
It's good for everybody to have a healthy fear of water.
But I'm glad Carson enjoys swimming. Good for him. That's a wonderful sport. Maybe he can become an Olympic swimmer one of these days. I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like whenever he's introduced to like something new, he's just like all in.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
And so once he realized that he could attain a half mile, he thought that was really cool. So he did it.
So now he's going for a mile next.
He definitely wants to swim a mile next. So.
I saw a news story the other day. I guess there's like a national swimming competition going on and somewhere in Asia, maybe Japan, something like that. Anyway, the U.S. team was dealing with a stomach bug, and I guess it messed up their scores.
So that seems like that happened a couple Olympics ago. There was like a stomach bug that was going through like the Olympic Village or something like that. Oh man, that's unfortunate. Yeah. Well, all right. Well, I haven't seen any comments. We'd love to hear from you guys. Let us know you're here. Just say hello.
Did you mention prayer requests? I think you did.
I think so. But if I didn't, go ahead and you can, as we're going through the show, drop prayer requests in the comments, and we'll have a prayer at the end. And I think it's your turn to say a prayer at the end. So
I had to check this morning real quick.
I'll be our reader of the passage, which is coming from Luke chapter 9. And so last time over the summer, it's not necessarily every week. So I think,
but it was last week.
It was last week. Yeah. So last week we covered the Transfiguration from Luke, and this story picks up right after it. After the Transfiguration happens, verse 37 is where we are, and it says on the next day. So this is right after the Transfiguration scene. And so we'll just read this next section, and then maybe read another section that's shorter right after that. But we'll just pause at. My Bible has verse 43 split up. Does yours? Like there's a section break between, like right in the middle of verse 43.
Oh, I mean, I guess mine starts a new paragraph. Yeah,
that's interesting.
That is interesting.
So, since 43 is broken up, we'll just read all the way through 45.
Okay.
All right. We talk about the weird paragraph break in our Bibles. So we'll start in verse 37. On the next day, when they had come down from the mountain, a great crowd met him. And behold, a man from the crowd cried out, "Teacher, I beg you to look at my son, for he is my only child. And behold, a spirit seizes him, and he suddenly cries out. It convulses him so that he foams at the mouth and shatters him, and will hardly leave him. And I begged your disciples to cast it out, but they could not." Jesus answered, "O faithless and twisted generation, how long am I to be with you and bear with you? Bring your son here." While he was coming, the demon threw him to the ground and convulsed him. But Jesus rebuked the unclean spirit and healed the boy and gave him back to his father. And all were astonished at the majesty of God. But while they were all marveling at everything he was doing, Jesus said to his disciples, "Let these words sink into your ears. The Son of Man is about to be delivered into the hands of men." But they did not understand this saying, and it was concealed from them, so that they might not perceive it. And they were afraid to ask him about this saying. All right. So, right after the transfiguration, we have this like mountaintop experience, and then right after that, like kind of a valley experience.
Literally. Yes.
This is the roller coaster ride of Jesus' ministry
Yeah.
and his disciples. They see something that you just think, wow, like we could do anything. And then next thing you know, it's like they're having not writer's cramp, but like stage fright almost. It's like, oh, why can't we do this?
Yeah, yeah.
And so Luke isn't as explicit on this as what Matthew and Mark are. It seems almost like this is an abbreviated account.
The healing.
Yeah, from what Matthew and Mark give, which could have multiple reasons. There's Luke doesn't really explain why. He gives an abbreviated account of it, but there's enough similarities between the account in Matthew and Mark to probably assume that this is the same story.
Yeah.
Luke is just giving a modified or abbreviated account. What would your guess be of why he doesn't give as much detail?
Well, in my guess is looking at even the section ahead of what we're reading about who will be the greatest. I think he's trying to kind of give us this roller coaster of there's these disciples who are in Jesus' inner circle and they get to see this amazing thing, and then immediately it goes down to, hey, they can't. They're trying to heal this boy and they can't do it, and so, like you said, they're down in a valley. And I think that kind of leads into this basic argument that they have. Well, I don't know. I kind of get the idea that, maybe some of these disciples were a little jealous of the inner circle that Jesus had that he took with him, because they didn't get to experience this transfiguration. And so I think maybe this is almost a transitional story for Luke.
Yeah.
But Matthew and Mark, don't they talk about him like falling into the fire?
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Convulsing. And then it also gives the reasoning. Jesus gives the reasoning why they couldn't cast it out. Or he says this kind of demon possession can only be, or this kind of ailment, or I can't remember exactly how he phrased it, but this kind can only be cast out by prayer.
And then I think some versions say fasting. Fasting and prayer.
Yeah, I think the maybe American Standard and maybe KJV and New KJV will say prayer and fasting, but yeah, all of them say this can only be done by prayer, and so it paints an immediate spotlight on just the disciples' lack of faith, their lack of prayer, and so Luke doesn't give as many details as what Matthew and Mark, the parallel gospels, do. And it might be because, if you look back to the beginning of Luke, as we referred to multiple times, the fact that he's gathering information, gathering accounts from various people. And it's possible that some of these accounts, he realizes that Matthew is given great detail. Mark's account is very much adequate. And so it's an important enough story that he wants to mention it, but he also recognizes, I think they got the details covered. And so maybe for that reason, he just, alludes to it, but doesn't go into full detail about it. But it also might just be like you mentioned, kind of the, um, I guess, storyline, the pace that he's trying to maintain, um, as far as mountaintop and valley experience, and trying to move the narrative along. And so yeah, they get to they get to this point, and it is interesting that we see that they're coming down from a mountain. You mentioned the possibility that the other disciples were maybe somewhat jealous. Does do they know that they went up on the mountain? I guess I've always thought that like this was kind of a secret thing, that maybe the other apostles didn't know that Peter, James, and John had gone up on the mountain, because Jesus tells them, "Don't tell anybody."
Don't tell them about the transfiguration. I would
But
guess
I guess they would have
they would
known.
know that the three of them went up the mountain.
Yeah.
And who knows if they kept it to themselves.
Right.
I mean, that's just an assumption. Scripture doesn't tell us, but I would guess at least that they knew that Peter, James, and John are Jesus' closest friends, and he takes them. When he goes to pray and things, he takes them further along with him on these trips.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so it doesn't seem like you mentioned that it was a very private event that they were up on the mountain, because when they came down from the mountain, this great crowd was there, almost like waiting on them. Like, and it makes me think that sometimes as Jesus is kind of taking Peter, James, and John maybe further, and leaves the rest of the apostles, that maybe it wasn't a sense of jealousy as much as it was like Jesus had certain jobs for certain ones, and he told these guys, "Hey, we're getting ready to go a little bit further, and we need you guys to stand as somewhat of guards, or kind of a barrier. Like, this is what your task is. This is what your job is. It's not that it's less of a task, but we need you down here because to kind of maintain the crowds, to kind of keep the crowds from coming up on the mountain and bothering us." And so maybe that was kind of what was going on. But anyway, they're all waiting. This massive crowd is waiting for them as they come down.
I kind of imagine this chaotic scene of them coming down the mountain, and people are, frustrated with all the apostles, and they're like, "Why can't you do this?" And I just imagine the dad is like, "Let me speak to your manager. You can't handle this. Let me talk to your manager. Maybe your manager can take care of it." And so, there's just all this chaos. The apostles are just frustrated, wondering why they can't do this. They're trying their hardest. I think one of the interesting things is when we read about other stories of demon possession and Jesus healing those demon possessed, he calls out the demon and speaks to the demon. In this one, he never does. At least it's not recorded. I don't think it's recorded in the other gospels either. But this, this seems a whole lot like symptoms of epilepsy. Back at that time, they weren't as knowledgeable about medical conditions, and so to them, epilepsy could have looked like demon possession. But I do find it interesting that Jesus doesn't call out the demon in this story like he does the other ones.
Yeah, that's interesting. And there seems to be at some points, and I can't think of other stories, and somebody might be able to help us in the comments, but it seems like at some points there is a distinction between like somebody that is having seizures or a health issue versus somebody that has a demon possession. It does seem like in the Gospels, and maybe we've even talked about this on Coffee Time before, but it does seem like there is a distinction made between like health issues and demon possession. And so, it does make me wonder though that what you bring up, as far as if people see something that maybe the medical field can diagnose as something specific today, and kind of chalk that up to demon possession. But yeah, this seems to specify anyway that, or at least the man is thinking that there's a demon. But it is interesting that he asked Jesus to just look at him.
I didn't really think about that.
I think it maybe speaks to the faith of the man. Um, However, in Matthew and Mark's account, you know, Jesus tells the man, if you will just believe, and the man says, I, I believe, help my unbelief, I think is the statement that he makes in the parallel gospels. But it is interesting that the man, he just wants Jesus to look at his son, and he thinks that if you'll simply look at him, and it makes me wonder too if like the language is similar to if we're taking our kids, grandkids, whatever it might be, to the doctor and like, hey, we need you to take a look at this. But I think it's more than that. I think the man is expecting and has faith that Jesus can do something, if he will just look at him. And so Luke, being a physician, I think also recognizes, and I'm almost positive. I wish I could think of where the story is that it talks about seizures and it being a health issue. But in verse 39, it seems like Luke, the physician, specifies that it is a spirit that is seizing him. And so I think that Luke is maybe making a distinction between just like an epileptic situation versus a demon possession. And so this has to be a pretty scary scene. You can imagine that as your child has something going on with them, that you'll do whatever it takes to get whatever treatment is necessary. And this man recognizes that Jesus is the treatment that his son needs. And but man, foaming at the mouth, convulsing. What does your verse or translation say in verse 39? Towards the end, after it says foams at the mouth, mine says and shatters him.
It is destroying him.
Destroying him. Okay. Yeah. All right. And will hardly leave him. And so, this spirit is just like absolutely just wiping him out from a physical standpoint. And the man is obviously scared that his son's going to die if something isn't done about this. And I guess he was going through the what do you call it, the ranks. He was trying to do the right process as far as instead of going straight to the manager like you described. He's going to the lower management first and asking the disciples to take care of it. And it may have even been that the disciples, the apostles that were at the base of the mountain, they're kind of standing guard. They were there to see Jesus. The parents did come to see Jesus, but they were like, no, he's up on the mountain, doing his thing. And so what do you need? And the parents are like, well, our son is right here. And so the disciples, having had power to do this, knowing that, or having seen that they could do this, attempt to do it, and they're not able to. And so I can imagine that probably was somewhat disturbing to the disciples as well. They've been able to do these kind of miracles that Jesus had given them power to do, and then all of a sudden they can't. They can't. And so I don't know. You think there's a sense of frustration there in verse 41 from Jesus?
Just a little bit. Well, you were talking. It makes you wonder. Like, there's probably a reason or a purpose to them not being able to do this. Like, was Jesus aware of this guy coming and that his apostles weren't going to be able to handle this, and so he was going to take this opportunity to teach something, maybe. But yes, verse 41, Jesus seems a little frustrated. I don't remember what yours says in that first phrase of there. Mine says, oh, unbelieving and perverse generation.
Oh, faithless and twisted generation.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And so it does seem like there is a sense of frustration. And you mentioned, I think too, that Jesus has given them power to do things. And I think he's wanting in this story to emphasize that, the power to heal, the power to cast out demons, the power to do these miraculous acts. Sometimes it's not just, your ability through the power of the Spirit to do these things, but prayer is a powerful spiritual habit as well. And, um, you know, you can't just your knee-jerk reaction be this miraculous power that I've given you. The knee-jerk reaction really ought to be prayer. Um, and maybe if the disciples had started with that, they wouldn't have even had to, go to, this miraculous power that Jesus had given them, um, and it would have been done. And it makes me think, there's the power of prayer is mentioned throughout scriptures, and in the letter of James, it talks about the prayer of faith will heal the one who is sick, and so oftentimes, we whenever there's a concern, um, we try all the things, and then like our last resort is prayer, and maybe that's what Jesus is trying to emphasize here, that your last resort shouldn't be prayer, but your first action item should be prayer.
I have a theory, and this is just a theory, but and it's verse 43 that makes me kind of think of this, where mine says, and they were all amazed at the greatness of God. That maybe that's not who they were trying to bring glory to. Maybe they were trying to impress the people with their ability to heal. Possible, I don't know for sure, but Jesus, his frustration in verse 41, it may be the fact that you're not doing this for my Father's glory. This is do I have to keep showing you this and telling you guys this is about bringing glory to God, not for ourselves. And so that's just a theory on my part, that maybe that's the part that they were missing. There may have been a little bit of kind of, the prayer part is sort of a last resort. They're like, why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? Well, it's not you doing it from the beginning. I think it was Nathan saying last night. He's talking about Daniel, and Daniel, they were talking about how the king went to Daniel and asked if he could interpret the dream. And Daniel said, I can't interpret the dream. It's God that can interpret the dream. And I think maybe that's kind of a similar concept here.
Not looking to your own power, or even giving credit to yourself, but having the humble spirit to recognize that this is God's power. And I think that I guess argument could also stand true when it comes to the language that's used in verse 41. Faithless and twisted generation, mine says. What does yours say again? Perverse generation. So that twisted, perverse language could suggest that they're doing things for the wrong reason, and so maybe that's why Jesus calls them twisted. And so so Jesus heals the boy, and glory and majesty is given to God, which is the ultimate purpose of Jesus. That's a good point. And then we see this weird paragraph break in verse 43.
Yeah, mine doesn't change sections. It looks like yours might change.
It just has a paragraph break.
Yeah.
Okay. And so those paragraph breaks are interesting because the verse numbers, we've kind of joked before, there's this myth that the guy who was putting the verse numbers in the text was riding on horseback or carriage, and kind of at the rhythm of the horse. And so sometimes there's verse breaks right in the middle of a sentence, in this case in the middle of a paragraph. But looking back at the original language, the original manuscripts, they would have breaks, and they would kind of break up paragraphs or thoughts. And so for whatever reason, they put the verse break of verse 43, and it's there's two sentences in this, and so they for whatever reason, I guess we can speculate about it, but anyway, so there is a distinction between kind of a paragraph break and the verse break here, and so but it seems like it's a carry-on story, because we see this marveling, this astonishment in the first sentence of verse 43, and then the paragraph break, and it's like, while they were still marveling, this happened. And so Jesus said to his disciples, while in the midst of this marveling, he gives yet another prediction, or foretelling of his crucifixion.
which this is not the first time he's done this.
Right.
He's done this several times.
Right. And within this chapter,
Yeah.
like a week ago,
Yeah.
like last week, because, you look back at the beginning of the Transfiguration story, it says about 8 days after these things. And then back up in verse 21 is when he foretells his death. So we're talking like, a little over a week and a half ago that he said this. And so he's giving these predictions or foretellings very, very close to each other. And yet the disciples, they're just not getting it. They don't seem to want to hear what Jesus is hearing. And so maybe that's why he uses the language in verse 44. Let this sink in.
Yeah.
Let these words sink into your ears. That what is getting ready to happen to the Son of Man. And so, they just don't seem to either want to understand or.
I think maybe that's part of it. That's not the Messiah they grew up learning about. They had a different expectation. They clearly had a good idea of who Jesus was, going back earlier in the chapter, Peter's confession, back in verse 18. And then, so they had a good idea of who Jesus was. And then he explains how he's going to have to suffer. And now he's going to see that he's betrayed into the hands of men. And it's like, wait a minute, no, you're going to, gather an army and we're going to march in and take over Rome or whatever. And so this is just completely foreign to them.
Yeah.
And they're just really having a hard time understanding.
Yeah. And, maybe they even thought that it was somewhat of a metaphor that, they recognize, kind of the language of Isaiah 53, but maybe they just thought, that it wasn't going to be like this physical suffering. It wasn't going to be physically Jesus, handed into the hands of men and crucified and killed. Maybe they just thought that was, kind of symbolic in nature. But it is interesting, the language that is used in verse 45, that they didn't understand it. It was concealed from them.
Oh yeah.
Is that what yours says?
Mine says it was hidden from them.
It was hidden from them. And so there's this sense that, we can, I guess, criticize the disciples all day and be like, man, they just would not listen. Jesus has to tell them how many times that this is going to happen. But the language suggests that Jesus is revealing these things, and yet it was concealed from them so that they might not perceive it. So there's this sense that Jesus is telling them almost like for the written record. Jesus is putting this on the radar, but it's concealed from them. And so it seems like almost like this oxymoron of what's going on here. On one hand, Jesus is revealing it, but on the other, it's concealed from them.
Yeah.
And so, which is it? And it's almost as if, even though Jesus is giving them these words, it's kind of hidden from them for a specific purpose.
Which it says after, he died and resurrected, it said that they remembered all the things that he had told them.
Yeah.
And so they're kind of, remembering, oh, you know what? He did say this.
Yeah.
That's what he was talking about this whole time.
Yeah.
So, and maybe that was because, Jesus had not yet fulfilled his purpose completely. Yeah. And so they weren't supposed to understand. Or maybe if they had understood, it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
They realized, oh, well, we don't want him to suffer, and so we're going to hide him away or whatever.
Right.
But if they didn't understand, then the process they went through to eventually get to Jerusalem ended up happening.
Right. Yeah. And so that last part of verse 45 kind of points to another reasoning why they didn't get understanding, because they were afraid to even ask. Yeah. And so, it makes me wonder, had they have put their fear aside and asked for clarification, maybe what would Jesus had said, but we'll never know because they were afraid to ask him. And so I think it, points to, even though it was concealed from them, it makes me wonder, had they have pushed back and dropped their fear and leaned into faith in Jesus, if he would have clarified things. I don't think that would have changed the outcome. I think that the Son of Man had to be crucified. I think that that was part of God's plan, and regardless of whether or not they were fearful leading up to this and had the boldness to ask Jesus for clarification, I think it would have all unfolded all the same.
Yeah.
But it may have changed their reaction whenever he's arrested, because they all flee like a bunch of cockroaches in the light. I mean, they all turn their backs on him, and so it may have changed that outcome. Had they have maybe been aware or had their eyes opened or maybe been anticipating this a little bit differently leading up to it, but they were afraid and they don't ask him. And so, I think that it points to, in our prayer life and our walk with Jesus, just kind of how open we need to be when it comes to our communication. Don't let fear get in the way of our communication with Jesus. The Gospel of John talks about, whenever light is shined in dark places, then that's really how we address sin in our life. And so, if we want to invite Jesus into every nook and cranny of our life, of our day to day, then we can't be afraid to talk to him, to confess things to him, to share things with him, and just ask those big tough questions. Kind of like Job. Job wasn't afraid to ask questions. God did call him out and kind of get after him a little bit, but Job was bold and he asked those questions. And so the challenge for us, and it's easier said than done, the challenge is to not let fear drive our communication with God.
I mean, that was a good thing to end this on, but I feel like I want to add something else just because I'm thinking about it. Sorry.
I didn't mean to have the closing statement.
I don't want to take the last word from you, but you're right. But I think it also shows that even though we don't understand what's going on, or we feel that things aren't going the way they should be, and we might get frustrated with God on certain things, it still shows that his plan is going to work out. No matter what. So basically, you can either be a part of the plan or you can be against the plan, but his plan is going to work out. So which one do you choose? So even though we don't always understand what's going on, we just have to trust that God's taking care of it.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And oftentimes in life, it's confusing why something is going on, why something is allowed to happen, and it can be difficult to trust in God's plan and just to admit that or recognize that God is in control. God's got this. So, excellent point. Well, I haven't seen any comments come up or prayer requests or anything along those lines. So if there are any last minute prayer requests, you can drop those in the comment section and we'll lift those up in prayer. But as I said earlier, even if you're watching this on playback, feel free to drop a comment or prayer request. And
Casey, I don't know if we're live.
You can be notified about that. Something is recording, so we can certainly post it after the fact. Facebook says we're live, so it's always a fun experience when it comes to Facebook.
See, now it says it was live.
It was live, so we might not still be live. We might just be talking to a camera lens here.
Yeah. Why did it do that? I don't think we're live anymore, Casey.
How long does that video say it is?
14 minutes and 23 seconds, which was
a long time ago. Well, Restream said we were at like 38 minutes. So is it still recording or Restream?
Oh, we may still be on YouTube.
Yeah.
Let me just open up YouTube real quick and see.
Oh, we'll just play with this as we go. Show you how the sausage is made as it was. Well, just in case we are live, I guess I'll keep talking.
Okay.
So we're not sitting here quietly.
if you do have prayer requests, we'll say a prayer
Yeah.
in a minute.
So currently we're pulling up YouTube. If you are watching on YouTube, it might be helpful if you dropped a comment. Do you know if the comments are open and available?
They should be, yeah.
So
Okay.
we're live on
It's
YouTube.
okay.
So
I guess we're still live on here.
Facebook decided to cut us off. I guess we weren't abiding by their rules and regs. But YouTube, we're strong on YouTube.
Yeah.
So sorry to our Facebook viewers.
They're trying to bring us down.
That's right.
It looks like we don't have any comments on YouTube either.
Okay.
So,
Well, not sure why Facebook dropped us, but glad we reached or dually streaming on YouTube. So one of the many reasons why we started doing this, because Facebook was so sketchy on whether or not we could go live, or it was like starting to delete our live videos after so many days, and so YouTube won't do that. So
I mean, this shows we have a couple of viewers, although we may be both of those. I'm gonna close Facebook here and see what happens. Oh, it shows we have 3. Okay, we got some people.
Yeah.
Hi. I guess you're watching on YouTube.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Yes. Yeah.
I hope maybe you got to join in on some of this and hear what we were talking about.
Yeah.
If not, go back and you should be able to watch it. Don't watch it on Facebook because you won't get the whole thing.
Yeah. Facebook, they got something against us, but whatever. We're long time live streamers on Facebook.
Yeah.
I feel like we were one of the first churches to start streaming on Facebook.
No,
I mean,
I wasn't
like even pre-pandemic before everybody was doing it. But
I wasn't a part of it back then.
Facebook will still continue to try. You know, everybody needs Jesus, even Facebook.
That's right.
So, well, I haven't seen any comments. Glad we're still live on YouTube.
Yeah.
And so, if there's no prayer requests, then we'll close it out in prayer.
Do you have any prayer requests?
No, I mean, whenever this happened, I was very concerned about like joint damage because it felt like it was right in my joint. So, just I guess prayers for healing like it's supposed to.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right. I don't know. I wasn't going to say anything. Anyway, let's pray. Father God, we come to you this morning just in amazement of everything that you've done for us. We're in amazement of the word that you've given us through your Son, the examples that he's shown us, and the stories that you have left for us to be able to read and learn more about him and try to better understand him. We ask that you be with us going into this week, being Monday morning. Help us to get through this Monday. Everybody that's listening, help all of them to get through this Monday and be able to make it through this week as smoothly as possible. We ask that you help us to shine our lights in the world, shine it into those dark places that Satan is still trying to control. Allow us to be able to see those places in our own hearts and reveal those and let those be made known to you, to allow you to come in and just heal our souls. This morning, we're thankful that Casey was able to make it and that his finger is feeling better. Help that heal quickly, and that he doesn't have any long-term damage from this. And if he does need to go to the doctor, let the doctors figure out what's going on with that and help him to heal better. Please be with everyone who is sick, those who have lost loved ones recently. Be with the people that maybe don't have air conditioning or don't have a home to stay in during the heat of the summer. Give them a place to go to cool off. Give them people to support and love them and care for them. We thank you especially for Jesus, so that we are able to get together like this and read from his word and share in that family that you've given us. It's in his name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you guys for joining us.
Yes.
We'll see you.